Hello, welcome to the Wool Reef channel. This is our first crocheting vlog where we want to introduce you to the behind the scenes of creating our patterns. And today, we're going to tell you about our bucket hat. Undoubtedly, our bucket hat has a striking appearance. The floral textured design, the combination of squares, trapezoids, and circles make it unique. In addition, you can crochet it in different colors to create the brightest possible summer accessory. A whole team works on creating our patterns. A designer, a pattern maker, skilled artisans who test the patterns, and a graphic designer who formats them.
Before we start, don't forget to subscribe. This is very important for the development of our channel.
Hello? Hello! We came to tell you about the Panama hat. How did you come up with the idea to crochet Panama hat?
The Panama hat itself is a pretty cool accessory, especially since it's trendy right now. For example, I wear Panama hats. I have one made of suiting fabric, and I also have a more sporty one. But a knitted Panama hat is especially relevant right now because there are so many of them. Now we're seeing collections specifically featuring crocheted items, crochet accessories. So the idea came to me, why not knit one myself? But I did a bit of extra research. There are several ways to crochet a Panama hat. It can be made with the most basic crochet stitches. It could be a pattern or, for example, like here, a granny square, or even made from various types of novelty yarn. When this idea first came to me, I honestly didn't really know what kind of yarn it would be. But I happened to have some yarn at home. It just happened over the weekend. Something like this. This is cotton, a natural fiber, something akin to a sturdy cord. But the primary point is I specifically wanted to meticulously craft a granny square that would possess a distinctly different visual appearance. Furthermore, I also desired a bit more substantial volume and a richer texture, and that is precisely why I ultimately chose to utilize this particular material. These are the kinds of stitches that go over the lower row with a yarn over. I crocheted a square. This was the first one, and I really liked it, honestly. This particular square, I got it almost right away. I mean, I had actually made some other squares before that I had meticulously crocheted, and this one just came together so quickly and easily. And here I understood geometrically how to put it together. And there's this nuance. Some things just work out for me on the first try. I just crocheted it and thought, wow, it worked on the first try, and it was the same here. It just turned out right on the first try. And then I needed to crochet this part of the bucket hat. How many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I ended up with 5 squares. I sewed them together and tried it on like this. Nice. That's it. At this point, I realized that was it. This is going to be a bestseller. Then I crocheted some more tulip-style bucket hats. Mine was shaped like trapezoids. But there are some nuances here. I ended up reworking them later. I'll talk about that later. But this first bucket hat, it turned out to be more of a test, and honestly, it's pretty heavy. It's like a fitting sample. That's why I decided to experiment more with the yarn. This was my second bucket hat. Here I used 2 colors, black and beige. This time it was Yarn Art Creative. Black and beige colors. What I particularly liked here is that the very same pattern, simply by changing the color scheme, looks completely and utterly different, almost to the absolute maximum extent possible. It's almost like a different design, a different concept. So with this pattern, you can really experiment with different colors. That is, you can add here. You can use 2 colors, or 3 or 4, or even 5. The only thing is, of course, you'll need to crochet some swatches beforehand to figure out which color combination works best, which one you like the most.
The squares have a very nice texture. How did you achieve that?
The essential thing is there are these particular stitches located right here that extend across the entire row. So we crochet the first, the second, the third, and then on the fourth row, when we crochet regular stitches here, we carefully make 2 yarn overs and then crochet into the second row. So essentially we are able to form this particular kind of stitch, which is quite voluminous and creates a lovely texture. And if you knit it like here in 2 or more colors, you get this sort of flower effect. And here it's the same. And here basically it's the same for us. Here we also used Yarn Art Creative. And even though we only used 1 color here, the texture is really beautiful thanks to these voluminous stitches. There's also a little secret here. We crochet the stitches by catching the entire previous row.
How did you manage to make the bucket hat hold its shape so well?
Well, actually it's cotton. It's a bit elastic, but I wouldn't say it's very dense. For example, if you made it out of raffia, I think it would be really cool for a beach-style bucket hat. The shape is also held quite well thanks to the way we precisely join the individual squares together. So here, in the same way, we selected a durable seam that both reliably holds its intricate shape and looks visually appealing for a stylish accessory.
What problems did you encounter while creating this pattern?
Yes, the easiest part was to crochet the first square. It turned out just perfect. The next problem was with the trapezoid. The problem with the trapezoid was that I underestimated it. I thought it would be just a regular trapezoid. Here in the bucket hat, it more or less came together, but I had to sew it. Not stitch to stitch, for example, but the top 2 stitches, the bottom 3 stitches, and so on, and you too. And that's a bit hard to understand. And here as well, we can see that. Thank you. It's kind of a bit wavy. Here it started to go. So I had to re-knit and look for the perfect trapezoid, one where the number of stitches in the top row would match perfectly with the bottom edge of this part of the bucket hat. Next, what other problems did we have? We had problems with the top part. I had the idea to knit exactly the same top part. Here I probably re-knitted it 3 times, maybe more, probably 3, and as a result we ended up with this one. I don't have the previous versions anymore, I unraveled them. Oh wait, actually we do have one right here. This was the first version. I knitted it with 5 different sections since we have 5 of these squares here. But I realized that having 5 isn't very good because there are rather large holes here. I understood that if this bucket hat were meant for some winter period, then these holes would still be a bit too big. And then it was decided that there would be 10 sections. They turned out to be more refined, more beautiful this way. But just for this top part of the bucket hat, it took a few days to perfect it to get exactly the right number of stitches so that it would sit nicely and look good. For example, if you're crocheting a bucket hat with 2 colors, I would recommend making this top part, for instance, in black. That is, don't mix beige with black specifically for this top part. Well, that's just a little nuance.
Why didn't you make the top with a regular single crochet? You can hardly even see it.
No, how could you do that? That would have been, well, honestly, just way too simple. You know, sometimes visually you see a part of some object and you realize they're just from completely different worlds. In the same way, if you just made it with regular loops here, I think that would be illegal, 100%.
For myself, for example, I would definitely wear this particular bucket hat like a classic cowboy hat, you know?
Yeah.
How exactly would you recommend wearing this item?
Oh, cool. I'd probably recommend wearing it as an everyday accessory. Now let me see, where are we? Here's the front. I would recommend it. You can wear it to the beach, it works as sun protection. I'd also recommend styling it with any everyday outfits because right now this accessory looks very fashionable. I recommend not limiting yourself. It can be completely different colors, different textures, different yarns. The main thing is just to keep the size right. So there can be all sorts of different options. But really, if you make it like this, it can actually look similar. A bit like a cowboy hat. But for a cowboy hat, I'd probably make this part a little bit bigger. For example, here where I added on, there are 4 rows knitted here and 2 here. So if you want it for a cowboy hat, you can really knit a bit more and wear it like that. Cool. Really, it's a very versatile accessory, especially now when it's totally on trend. I would recommend not limiting yourself. You can style it and wear it in so many different ways and in different seasons. I also wanted to ask you, have you ever worn a knitted bucket hat? Maybe you knitted one yourself, maybe you bought one somewhere, or maybe someone gave it to you as a gift. What did you think of it? And maybe would you like to knit such a gorgeous bucket hat for yourself or as a gift for someone?